Hello, ladies and dudes. It's your favorite, one of your very favorite people with Parkinson's here, J Mac, with for another fun episode, fantastic episode, I should say, of Not Just Parkinson's. Joined by, I think it's Princess Leia over there. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? Just hanging out, Came across the galaxy to meet up and talk about Parkinson's with my favorite Blockbuster employee.
Yep, you can see that my name tag actually says J Mac on it.
Oh, that's cool.
My wife got it made for me, and people don't understand my Blockbuster fixation, but I will explain it to you this way. I love movies, and we're going to get into some 80s stuff, which is why I'm wearing this, and which is why I'm assuming you're wearing some. Even though it was 1977 when that came out, we're going to get into some 80s stuff after we talk about DBS. This is, of course, is the world famous Julio.
Hi, everyone. Coming to you from Bedford, New Hampshire.
All right, let's jump right into it. You got DBS. Now, we saw you in your last interview about a month ago, and you
Yes.
had not yet had it turned on. So tell,
Yeah,
tell me about the process. Just briefly explain to those who don't know what DBS is, just like maybe two or three sentences.
sure. So stands for Deep Brain Stimulation. The easiest way to explain it is that it's like a pacemaker, but for your brain. So you get a device that shoots out electrical impulses in to your throughout your body that helps with managing Parkinson's um, symptoms. Some people have explained it to. I've heard it explained as electrical medicine versus taking a prescription. So it's not a cure, but it's definitely helped me cut down on my Parkinson's medication, and I feel like it's been life-changing for me.
That's awesome. I'm going to throw up a picture here of the photo that I guess your husband took when they first turned on your DBS. I'll throw it up.
Okay.
Okay, explain that face there. You know the photo I'm talking about, right? When
Oh
they
yeah,
turned
the
it.
one where I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Explain that face.
so when you go to the doctor to get your device turned on, you can't take your medication. So it's called you're basically in your full off state. So I had severe foot dystonia. So my left foot, I call it my L foot. I'll actually send you a picture. Um, and so I was sitting there with my L foot. It was hard to walk, and um, I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden, he just, didn't hit a switch, but he pushed some buttons on his iPad, and all of a sudden, it just like relaxed, and it was just that exactly. My husband wasn't supposed to record it; wasn't supposed to be recording, but he was doing it anyways. But yeah, he just caught that exact moment where he turned it on. It was just like instant relief, and then I cried, a little bit afterwards. But it's for me, it's been life changing.
Explain how you treated your doctor. This was a great part. I guess your surgeon. Explain what you did to your doctor immediately after your exam was, or they turned it on.
Yeah, so yeah, we finished the appointment, and we were just gonna say our goodbyes, and it's kind of like he says, "I'll see you next time," and I'm like, um, "Can I give you a hug?" And he just kind of looked at me, and he's like, he was kind of taken back, and he's like, "Sure." So we actually had a moment. I hugged him, and kind of pat each other on the back, and did a fist pump, and then he actually had it wasn't I almost called it an intern, but it's not a resident. It's like a doctor that's going to be specializing that has is already gone to school for neurology, but is doing the extra step to become a movement disorder specialist, an MDS.
Yes.
And so he was there during the programming, and didn't say much, but he was standing by the door as I was exiting out. I shook his hand and said, thank you for going to into neurology, and put a bright smile on his face. So I've said it before. It was just it. The whole experience has been magical.
Sounds like now we've talked, or I've talked on some of my other videos about my reasons on not doing it. So let's go through some things you can do now and some things that may be more difficult now. There may be nothing, but what are some things you can do now, or you're able to do better now that you weren't able to do before?
So waking up in the morning has been a completely changed. It has been completely changed. It used to be that I would basically sit in bed for about sometimes up to 2 hours, just either waiting for like the rigidity to calm down or my toes to uncurl. Um, lack of energy, and a lot of us had a hard time sleeping. So, part of it was just I was just tired. My dog liked it. He just thought I was laying in bed just, to cuddle with him. Um, so I think I mentioned on one of my social media posts that the first morning I woke up, I walked downstairs to make the pot of coffee. I mean, I hadn't done that in like I can't remember. Like I left my husband sleeping in the bed, and I was the one that I didn't have to wait for my meds to kick in. And then brought up a cup of coffee for him, and then jumped in the shower because my toes weren't curled. And I didn't have to, again, I didn't have to wait for my meds to kick in. So that's changed. I'm actually driving, um, but I'm driving more. I actually drove 4 hours each direction to go see the solar eclipse. So a total of like 8 hours. I would have never been able to do that if, uh, a week prior, if my device hadn't been turned on.
I feel that. Yeah, I'm fortunate that I don't know what it is. I can still do most of the things you're talking about off my medication. It's the medication when it kicks in, that's when I have trouble doing things. But okay, that leads me to my next point. Is there anything that has been a downside to DBS? Anything that you're having more trouble with now? Speech, cognition?
Actually, no, I haven't had anything like negative. It's just like little minor things. Because of the implant device, I had to find new bras with different types of straps, just because it hits like the where the implant is.
Yes.
And it's the device, not other implants. Just little
That's a
adjustments.
very manageable. That's a very manageable position there. Just a new strap. That's.
Yeah.
I'm first of all, I got to say I'm so happy for you, Julie, because I know going into anything like this, there's no guarantee. And like I've talked on other episodes, specifically with David Sangster from the UK, he's another success story. But um, it's kind of an inexact science, DBS. And I'm so happy for you, and so I feel like you're so fortunate. You sounds like you're kind of the ideal case for best case scenario. I can't tell you how happy I'm for you. The driving, that's something I can only be in the car driving, um, maybe for an hour. Anything beyond that, it's too much. And I'll drive locally, but I don't like getting on highways. So you're doing highways?
I'm doing highways. It's so my confidence level is up, which this has caused my anxiety to go down, which allows me to do more, to do more. I was so paralyzed with anxiety for so long that it's actually it's like I have to get used to it. It's kind of a strange thing. Um, and what I've learned too is like everyone's journey to DBS is different. And there's a lot of strong opinions about it. Whether you do it in 3 surgeries or 2 surgeries, or I did it in 1, and I did mine fully asleep. But I had reasons why I did mine asleep. It's because of my anxiety is so high, and I'm claustrophobic. So being awake was not even an option for me, because I wouldn't have done it if I had to be awake.
So your anxiety is down. That's great, because that's one thing, and I've done videos about it, and I'm sure anybody who's familiar with Parkinson's, who has a loved one or themselves have it, understand anxiety in this disease can be crippling, not just because of the brain condition, but the medicines we take can sometimes cause us anxiety, whether just from the wearing on and off and the dyskinesia, the wiggly movements that can happen in public, or
Yeah.
just simply makes you jumpy. I find Cinemet can make me jumpy. I think the term is hyperreflexive.
Yeah, I had a Parkinson's friend that visited me yesterday. He was in town.
Want to give him a shout out?
Ryan, he's not on social media at all.
Okay, well, you can send him
But
this
his name is
video.
Ryan Holland. We actually met like on an improv Jam for Joy that's on Thursday nights. We got randomly paired up, and we just, when you just meet people, you just have connections with some people. So we've been friends for about a year. But what were we talking about? Anxiety?
Yeah, anxiety, how the medication can sometimes make us hyper reflexive.
Yeah. So he brought that up. I've noticed that I was like that before DBS, and I haven't experienced it since I turned the device on, but I've reduced my meds by 45%,
Wow.
and I've eliminated amantadine completely.
Do you have bad off periods now? I'm assuming you don't.
No, in the morning, I'll be a little stiff. Occasionally, I'll have my claw hand, but I can turn the DBS stronger. Like my doctor gave me a range from 1.5 to 2.5 that I can um, uh, up. I call it up the ampage or reduce the ampage depending on my situation. So yeah, it's like
So happy for you. So happy for you.
yeah. So I haven't experienced any dyskinesia since he turned it on. And
That's huge for those of us with PD that suffer from that. It's a huge thing. That sometimes can be as crippling as the disease itself for those of us who deal with it.
yeah, and it's like ironic. It for me, I'm just putting on my do not disturb on my phone. So for me, I didn't have any tremors. My main symptoms were rigidity, slowness of movement, and of course the dystonia. So I always thought it was ironic that, a drug that's supposed to help me with Parkinson's caused me to have uncontrollable movement. And mine was so bad that, I looked like I was having a seizure.
I mean, I can relate that usually my worst is in the morning. Once I'm on it, kind of titrating it throughout the day. It's the worst of it's in my legs when I try to walk, as we've talked before. All right, I think we've talked. Do you want to, before we move on, is there anything else you want to say about DBS? Because we're getting ready to talk about some 1980s music and fashion here. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'd just like to give a shout out to my neurosurgeon, Dr. Aronson, and I actually got my surgery done at the Parkinson's Foundation Center of Excellence at Beth Israel in Boston. So I never publicly thanked him. I realized that like a week or two ago. So that's all.
Well, now you can do it on a world stage. All
Yeah.
right, let's talk some 1980s.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to tell you that I was born in '76. I'm kind of like half in '80s and half in '90s. But I got a little toy here. The 1980s began for me for 1983. I was 7 years old. Return of the Jedi came out,
Yeah.
and I really wasn't supposed to be. I'll set Job up here. Job of the Hut. I saw that toy. Some kid at my school had that, and I wasn't really allowed to watch. We were very conservative growing up, very religious, but I snuck and watched the speeder bike chase,
Oh yeah.
and it blew my 7-year-old mind. I could not believe how gnarly that was. That was like, it just looked so real.
Ewoks, right? That was with the Ewoks, right?
Yeah, on Endor, the
Yeah.
forest moon of Endor.
I love the entire franchise. Yeah, so when I was 7, I asked my mom, I didn't make her, to do my hair because I had long hair like Princess Leia, and I got in the school bus, and I got made fun of because it looked like I had like donut like rolls on the side of my head, but I wore wore it like, I mean, I just thought I was like Princess Leia. And I was it for Halloween one year. I was trying to find a picture, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, just sharing. I love
So what about the '80s so transfixes you, or is it does it bring you back to a younger time, or is it like the feeling, the retro feeling? Because I think a lot of people now, that was 40 years ago. I think a lot of kids now like have this feeling, this vibe of the '80s. Now we were there, but explain your love of the '80s.
Okay, so I was born in 1973. So, I was 7 years old, in 1980. And if you think of I mean, it's, when I was like 7, what was big back then? What came out? Like, I listened to like Cyndi Lauper and all that kind of stuff. And then
Girls just want to have fun.
time after time, whatever. And, and like the Thriller, all that kind of stuff. MTV was born, or whatever. What was it? Not Born, but
They
Launch.
still played music videos.
Yeah, do they? And then and
No,
then
no, back then they did, but now they don't. Now it's all reality shows.
and I mean I just remember it's just so much cool music, you know, like I mean I remember having an argument with my mom in the car when Madonna came out, you know, with
By the way, see this back here, True
yeah, I
Blue.
noticed that right away.
Yeah, and there's Billy Idol, and then there's Blizzard of Oz,
Oh
which
yeah,
came out in
Billy
1980.
Idol, yeah. And
Rebel
then
Yell, yeah.
yeah, you know, like Blondie, you know, I was always trying to like learn the words of like Rapture, you know, that little rap, you know, Rapture, and then you know, Billy Idol. I actually wanted to go to Whitney Houston, and my mom wouldn't let me go see Whitney Houston because she didn't even know who she was and thought it would be like, I don't know what. She just thought like, I don't know, like she was scared for me. And you know, like the Go-Go's and all that kind of stuff. And then you end the 80s with like Nirvana. I mean, it's just like, you know, from one extreme to the other. And maybe that's why my taste in music is so eclectic. It's you know, you
Well,
listen to different music when you're 7 compared to when you're 17, right?
the song and album that stands out for me, the song and the album that really defined the 80s, the early 80s for me, that got me aware of music, was Thriller.
Oh
You
yeah.
could not turn on a radio, go to a store, be at a barbecue, turn on the TV without hearing Beat It or Thriller or
Billie Jean.
Billie Jean. Just a killer album. And even as a very sheltered kid, who, I mean, I've everything I've learned about music I've learned after the age of 20. But even that got through to me. And I remember wanting the Thriller album because I went over to my friend's house and he had the vinyl. I've got it upstairs. I think I featured it on my first record collection, Thriller. And it was like magic. I'd never heard any music like that before.
Yeah, and I remember when the video was coming out, I sat, you know, that was before, you know, DVRs, and we had the VHS, the VCRs, and you had to sit there and wait, you know, to hit start to hit record. But I just remember it was just it was like a moment in time, you know, when that video first came out. Um, I was like, I think I was in 5th grade. I mean, I remember I had the big buttons. Remember we used to wear the big buttons?
Yep.
I mean, I did, but
I had a pair of red parachute pants. I'm not gonna lie. But here's the thing: I couldn't afford a pair of my own. So basically, my friend had his all ripped up. He gave it to me. So I was like, I think I wore them a few times, and then realized, you know, I don't think I'm really pulling this off quite like MJ did. But and then you know, 1980 kicked off with one of the best, I think, the second best selling album of all time, which was Back in Black, and this was, of course, Brian Johnson replaced Bon Scott as the singer of AC/DC. They thought they were done. That still, to me, if you put that on a vinyl turntable with good speakers, still one of the best, probably the best guitar sound ever recorded was Angus and Malcolm Young on that album.
My brother had the AC/DC Highway to Hell, and
Yep.
yeah,
79.
yeah, and he told me as an adult that my mom hated it. She hated Madonna and she hated AC/DC. So he was like, that was like
Devil music.
that was just like yeah, basically. And, he said like miraculously one day he went to go play the record on his stereo and the record was just missing, and she had gotten rid of it. But I still listen to AC/DC. I love AC/DC.
Yeah, I really do. That's one of those bands that they say makes the same album over and over. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying?
Like it's like Green Day, right?
Yep. Okay, something else that jumped out at me about the 80s music was I remember hearing about this guy named Ozzy Osbourne. And I was not allowed to, I was not.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
I said I was afraid of him. Like he scared me like when I was you know, younger, but now you know, now I love him.
Well, I mean, all I knew was that he bit the head off a bat. And
that's what I knew too.
It scared the hell out of me. It really did. And of course, my parents were like, "We're not listening to goddamn Ozzy Osbourne." And then remember the Suicide Solution controversy where they said there was backmasking?
Oh no, I don't remember that.
Yeah, there's a part in Suicide Solution where he's like mumbling, and they said if he played it backwards, it would say,
yeah.
Or okay. No, not play it backwards, but just like he was sending subliminal messages. And if
Yeah,
anybody knows anything about Ozzy Osbourne, the dude could barely string a sentence together. I don't think he was sending secret messages through records.
yeah. Yeah, like I didn't get into Ozzy Osbourne until I was an adult because I was scared of him.
What's some other big albums or bands from the '80s that really still resonate with you, or
Uh,
maybe one that you thought was cool that sucks now?
I like Skid Row.
Yep.
Like Guns N' Roses, Skid Row.
Sebastian
Uh,
Bach,
oh yeah, Sebastian by 18 in Life. I like Sister Christian. Who sang that?
Night Ranger.
Night Ranger. Um, I liked of course Guns N' Roses. We talked about that. U2, we talked about that.
Joshua Tree came out in the '80s. I want to say '82, '83. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember what year it was, but Twisted Sister.
Yep. Dee Snider.
Dee Snider.
Now that dude scared me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
He
So
still scares me a little bit. I got to be honest with you.
who do you think would win in a death match? Twisted Sister or Ozzy Osbourne? It's themselves in the 80s.
Oh, Ozzy would have lost. There's no Ozzy's a lover, not a fighter. I mean, yeah, no, I hands down, Dee Snider, hands down. I think even Ozzy would say that.
Okay. And then I didn't get like into like the what is it? God, I just lost my train of thought.
New wave.
Yeah, I got into new wave like in high school, like Depeche Mode and New Order, Erasure,
Flock of Seagulls.
yeah, I mean I like them. I like Morrissey, and actually my 14-year-old stepdaughter, she came in like singing the Smiths like last week, and I'm like,
Wow.
what? I'm like, where'd you learn? Where'd you hear about that? I saw Morrissey in concert. He played 2 songs and left the stage, but
Oh, kind of a diva. That's what I think his reputation.
mhm.
Okay, let's move on to '80s fashion because if you notice, my wife put in my one earring here, my dangly earring. I
uh,
normally just wear hoops. Fashion in the '80s, I can't say there was much redeeming about it. It was like cyberpunk, kind of like futuristic stuff. I mean, Billy Idol's hair, Madonna's hair.
Remember like the fluorescent? I had a sweatshirt that said Frankie says relax.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool.
Now, do you have any outfits that you look back at yourself now and think, what the hell was I thinking when you wore it?
Yeah, I used to wear I used to do my makeup was awful. Like I did like the whole side ponytail and
Yep.
like
Cindy Lauper thing.
yeah, and well my mom was pretty strict with everything. I was kept on a short leash. So I wasn't
I'm not through that leash.
so I had to dress pretty conservative, but I always wish that um I could have had like but ladies will understand this. They had dolphin shorts, which was like the 80s version of Lululemons, and my mom wouldn't let me ever wear them, and I wanted them forever.
Why? Because they were too short or something?
Yeah, they're too short.
Here's something ridiculous about the '80s. I just remember women's hair and men's hair, for that matter, being like it was they were like concrete. There was so much sprayed hairspray, and I don't know if you remember the band Striper, the Christian metal band, the Yellow and Black Attack.
I've heard of them, but I don't really remember. I have to Google them.
My dad did not like them. He's like, why are they dressing up like ladies? And that was something where it was like it was okay for dudes to wear ladies' clothes. And
Yeah, like David Lee Roth and Poison.
yeah, Van Halen, David Lee Roth, and his hair and attitude defined the '80s. The excess, probably the illicit substances going up his nose. It's just the unbelievable. I mean, I think there's a documentary about Van Halen on the road. Just the debauchery that went on. I mean,
and Motley Crue and
yeah.
I like Def Leppard, but I didn't get into like Def Leppard until I was a little bit older.
Well, the thing, I just remember all the hair. Like if you look at, you can tell instantly what decade you're in with the picture with the hair. I mean, sometimes the '90s can look like the '70s, depending on hairstyle, but the 80s, it's complete. There's no other decade where that nonsense would go on.
Yeah. Well, take a look at Prince. I mean, he made wearing like lip gloss okay in the 80s, right? In high
Yes.
heels.
Do you remember when he went on like the VMAs and he had those that the pants with the butt cheeks that's hanging out the back?
I forgot about that until I just had like a flash of memory in my head.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to catch on, but if the Prince might have been the only guy in the world that could get away with it, and even then, I'm not sure he got away with it.
Yeah, that whole ensemble for the top he had for Purple Rain.
Oh yeah, very very femme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to
Which
love.
by the way, is one of my favorite albums from the '80s.
Yeah, mine too. And remember Sheila E. and Morris Day and the Time.
Yep, yep. You know the thing I remember about the '80s, and that's I'm going to bring it back to Blockbuster for a minute, was going to the video store and renting movies. Now, VCRs were new in the '80s. I think they came out in the late '70s. But if you were rich or you were one of the cool kids, you had a VCR. We did not, and so we would rent the VCR to watch movies. And it was actually one of my great memories of childhood was my dad going to the local grocery store where they had a video section or the Blockbuster and renting a VCR, and he would bring home like I remember Flight of the Navigator was my movie from the '80s that I just and then what else from the '80s? Of course, all the Schwarzenegger movies and just the excess of the '80s. It was so overblown. It was just just amazing.
Teen Wolf. Oh, Breakfast Club. 16 Candles.
Oh yeah, all the John Hughes movies.
Yeah, yeah. That's what was the one? Did I just say Breakfast Club? I can't.
Yes, yes.
St. Elmo's Fire.
Family Ties.
Oh yeah, Family Ties, TV shows.
You know, I rewatched Family Ties, and I kind of get why my parents were kind of dodgy about that because there's some very adult topics that they deal with on that show.
Oh really?
And I'm not saying it's bad, but I mean, yeah, it was. I remember some of the topics being like, "Wow, this is kind of heavy for a sitcom."
Oh, I'll have to go back and watch it. Remember Facts of Life?
Yes, Blair.
Blair. Oh, and what's that other movie? Gosh, Saturday, was it Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings? We used to watch David and Goliath. And
oh, Davy, yeah, Davy.
Davy, hey Davy. And
now, did you go to church in the '80s?
Yeah, and we had to go every Sunday.
Yeah, I had to go too, and I remember the ridiculous outfits that the women would wear to church.
Yeah, for my mom, it was a social situation. Like she still goes to church, but yeah, she was always all the ladies were trying to always up each other on whatever hat they were wearing or whatever. My dad just went for the free donuts and coffee. Interesting little thing about me. My dad was Muslim. He was from India, and my mom was from
nice.
India. So he only went to church because my brother one morning said, "I'm not going to church because Dad's not going because it wasn't his religion." And he's like, "Okay, we're all going to church." So
my sitar teacher was Muslim. He was from India.
Oh yeah, you were telling me.
Yeah,
Ravi.
great guy. First Muslim I ever met, and I got to tell you, it was he really opened my eyes to a whole different view of it because I mean, you know, in this country and probably around the world, I mean, there's like an ignorance of a lot of things, and
right.
But to meet him really changed my mind about a lot of things, but religion in particular. I'm like, so there can't. I mean, as a Christian, you're taught that there's only one way. But after meeting my sitar teacher, Imrat Khan, I really got a new perspective from that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite '80s. Well, we already talked about '80s movies. If you were on a desert island and you could only have 3 albums from the '80s, what would those albums be?
Duran Duran, the album with Rio on it, Hungry Like a Wolf.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's one. Number 2 would be Thriller.
Yes,
and then,
chock full of good songs.
And then number 2 would be probably like Guns N' Roses.
You know, I was going to say this and I forgot. When Appetite for Destruction came out, it destroyed hair metal.
Yeah, because it almost made it look like. Well, I felt like Guns N' Roses this was a little bit more talented than some of the.
I would
People.
agree with that.
Yeah, it was. I considered some of the hair bands from the '80s kind of like boy bands of the '90s and 2000s. It was
New Kids on the Block.
yeah, or who else? Uh, Backstreet Boys. I
Yeah,
can't think of.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like a good Backstreet Boys song here and there, but I mean,
But
I still like them, but I don't really consider them like high end music. Not high end, but like I don't know what I'm trying to say.
well, I will say that I will say this: the '80s kind of ruined guitar solos. I mean, you had Randy Rhoads, you had Slash, you had. I mean, I could be a million other guitar players, but they wore out the guitar solo, which then gave birth to the '90s, where Nirvana would Kurt Cobain would do no solos.
Right. I just had like a flash of Queensryche and Quiet Riot in my.
Oh yeah, Metal Health.
Yeah. I don't know. I just have random thoughts sometimes.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Julie. Let's
Yeah.
disconnect and talk a little bit more.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, see you next time.
All right.